Ethan and Marissa had always been a picture of ordinary suburban bliss, or so he believed. They'd met early in college, falling for each other with the kind of passion that promised forever. Their first years were filled with laughter, shared dreams, and countless quiet mornings together, sipping coffee on their sunlit kitchen counter while planning their future. Even as years went by and life's challenges began to pile up, he held tightly to the belief that their bond would outlast any storm. A routine morning with hidden fault lines. One cool autumn morning, the two of them set out on their well-rehearsed routine. Marissa, ever the early riser, had already prepared breakfast while Ethan packed the car for his morning errands. Despite a sense of normalcy, subtle hints of distance had begun to mark their conversations recently. Ethan, preoccupied with his work and the usual bustle of life, had attributed the minor changes to stress and fatigue, rather than the ominous ripple of betrayal. That day, as the sun edged over the horizon and painted the sky with hues of orange and blush, Ethan decided to stop by his favorite local coffee shop, a small, inviting place known for its warm ambiance and even warmer baristas. Promising himself just a quick refuel and maybe a moment of quiet contemplation, he stepped out, leaving Marissa behind at home. The unsettling discovery. While the rhythmic hum of the coffee shop offered a momentary escape, his internal dialogue was still filled with thoughts of Marissa and the way she'd seemed more distant recently. With coffee in hand, he decided to run a quick errand into town, a route he hadn't taken in a while. It was on a bustling street corner, lined with modern shops and an unusual array of people, that he paused in mid-step, a feeling of déjà vu settling over him. Across the street, leaning casually against the frame of a trendy storefront, he saw her. Marissa was animatedly chatting with a stranger. The man with her was impeccably dressed, a stark contrast to the casual spontaneity they now exuded. Yet what struck him immediately was not their conversation. It was the way the man's eyes kept drifting toward Marissa's curves, his gaze lingering with an unsettling mix of admiration and desire. At that moment, time seemed to slow as Ethan's heart pounded fiercely against his ribcage. The casual chatter, the innocent smiles between them, suddenly reeked of intimacy that was not meant for him. Emotions on a knife's edge. Confusion, disbelief, and a sharp sting of betrayal coursed through him. Questions tumbled through his mind as he stood rooted on the sidewalk. Why? How long? The foundation of what he thought was their life began to crack. Ethan's mind raced back to the seemingly insignificant moments he had overlooked. The extra phone calls in the evenings, the whispered conversations that he had brushed off as stress, the frequent absences under the guise of work emergencies. Now, all of it converged into a single painful realization. He was being deceived by the one person he trusted the most. The confrontation. Struggling to make sense of his swirling emotions, Ethan fought the urge to approach them immediately. The conflict within him was evident. Part of him needed to gather his thoughts, while another screamed for confrontation. Deciding to confront the situation with cautious resolve, he returned home. The walk back felt interminable, each step weighted with memories of the life they'd built together. Upon reaching the front door, he hesitated only a moment before stepping inside. The silence of the house now bore the ghosts of shared laughter and whispered dreams. In the living room, he found Marissa seated with her attention fixed on her phone. The moment their eyes met, the charged silence erupted into a confrontation that was as raw as it was heartbreaking. In a surge of controlled fury and betrayal, Ethan demanded an explanation. Marissa's initial shock soon faded into a reluctant sadness, her defenses crumbling under the intensity of his eyes and the unspoken truth in every syllable of his questioning. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she confessed, her voice trembling with remorse and guilt. "I never wanted to hurt you." But each word only deepened the wound in Ethan's heart, an irrevocable fracture in a marriage that he had counted on lasting a lifetime. Aftermath and the search for healing. The ensuing days were a turbulent blend of anger, sorrow, and a desperate search for understanding. Ethan vacillated between confronting his own sense of betrayal and pondering if his own neglect had somehow contributed to their faltering intimacy. The confrontation marked the beginning of a painful, often messy journey towards healing. He considered counseling, not merely as a means of salvaging the remnants of their relationship, but also as a way to understand the deeper fissures in both of their hearts. As weeks turned into months, Ethan found himself grappling with profound questions about trust, self-worth, and the nature of love. Despite the overwhelming desire to punish the betrayal, he also felt the need to understand why things had unraveled between them. In the quiet hours of the night, he penned long letters to himself, exploring every emotion, every hidden regret, and every pang of longing for the uncomplicated love of their early days. Marissa, on her part, embarked on her own difficult path. The affair was not just a symptom of marital decay, but also an exploration of her own unmet desires and confused identity. Reflecting on her actions in tear-stained journals, she reached out for professional help to untangle the emotional web that had led to her momentary lapse in judgment. Both realized that the affair wasn't just a breach of fidelity, it was an eruption of issues that had long been brewing beneath the surface, issues that neither had fully acknowledged. A bittersweet resolution. Months later, with scars that would always remain etched on their hearts, Ethan and Marissa found themselves at a crossroads. They met one chilly evening at the park where they once strolled hand in hand under the gentle glow of street lamps. The conversation was raw, unfiltered, and tinged with both regret and a subtle hope for reconciliation. They talked about the breach of trust, the moments of beautiful shared memory, and the hard work required to rebuild something even if it wasn't exactly as it once was. Ethan's journey was not one of blind forgiveness. Instead, it was a process of rediscovering who he was outside the shadow of betrayal. Over time, he learned that healing did not mean forgetting, but learning to live with the memory while forging ahead into a future where he could, once again, learn to trust, if only himself. Marissa committed to the arduous task of atonement, embracing therapy and personal growth with an earnest desire to understand how both had drifted and to see if they might bridge that gap once more. Epilogue: The New Dawn. Their story did not have a neat conclusion. There were no grand declarations of everlasting love or miraculous turns that restored the old magic. Instead, the truth was a quiet and steady rebuilding of life, one where forgiveness was earned slowly and trust was mended like fragile porcelain, piece by piece. Ethan and Marissa, both altered by the experience, continued their lives on separate paths that occasionally intertwined in moments of shared history and mutual respect. In the end, the betrayal served as a painful but transformative juncture. It challenged them to face their vulnerabilities and rediscover their truths. And while the scars of that autumn day remained, they also became the catalysts for a deeper understanding of love, a kind that wasn't defined solely by perfection, but by the resilience to withstand life's inevitable missteps and emerge at last with the wisdom of experience. Alex had always considered his marriage to Officer Danielle one of the most solid and secure relationships he'd ever known. They'd built a life together on trust, respect, and quiet admiration for one another's strengths. Alex worked as a software engineer and cherished the stability of their evenings together, long conversations over dinner and weekend adventures. He believed that beneath Danielle's tough, duty-bound exterior lay the same loving woman who had captured his heart years ago. The incident. One brisk autumn afternoon, Alex decided to leave work a few minutes early for a change of pace. As he drove through town, his mind buzzed with thoughts of the upcoming anniversary and the surprise dinner he had planned for Danielle. As fate would have it, on a busy downtown street, something unusual caught his attention. There, in full uniform and with unmistakable authority, was Danielle. She was in the middle of what appeared to be an arrest. Her expression was firm, yet oddly persuasive. Alex slowed to a stop at a red light, his brow furrowing in confusion as he observed her gently detaining a disheveled man. Danielle later explained that the suspect had been relentlessly texting and making flirty remarks in public spaces, behavior that had escalated into harassment. With swift professionalism, she had intervened to prevent further discomfort, issuing a citation and arranging for the man's temporary detention before the matter was handed over to the proper authorities. Still, something about the scene didn't sit right with Alex. As the light turned green, he watched in disbelief as Danielle helped the man into an unmarked police vehicle. The way she interacted with him was unexpectedly warm, a familiarity in her tone that made Alex's stomach twist. Days of Distant Shadows. Returning home that evening, Alex tried to dismiss the odd scene as a twist of fate, a complicated workday that he might never fully understand. Yet in the days following the incident, a subtle shift began to take root. Danielle, typically vibrant and forthcoming, gradually became more distant. Their once lively dinners turned into quiet meals, punctuated by long silences and half-hearted smiles. Unbeknownst to Alex, Danielle's phone buzzed constantly with messages. Cryptic texts filled its screen, and her demeanor shifted whenever she received one. While Alex busied himself with household projects, Danielle would sometimes disappear into another room, her eyes locked on the screen as she typed rapidly. Every time he tried to bridge the gap with a casual question about her day, she offered vague, disconnected answers, quickly moving on to other topics. Alex began to notice small inconsistencies. The manner in which she recalled the details of that arrest, reminiscent of a rehearsed story rather than a natural recounting, raised questions. And then there were the inexplicable late-night phone calls during what was supposed to be their shared downtime. The man she had once arrested now appeared to be a recurring name in her texts, a fact that gnawed at Alex's intuition like an unseen presence in their otherwise orderly life. The slow burn of suspicion. As the days blurred together, Alex's initial confusion matured into suspicion and a persistent ache of betrayal. He started scrutinizing the details. A text slipped on Danielle's screen as she left the room, a hushed conversation that ended with a soft laugh at a message he couldn't hear. His inner turmoil wrestled with memories of the woman he loved, now clouded by newfound doubts. Late one night, as Alex sat in the quiet of their living room, the glow of his computer screen illuminating scattered notes of unpaid bills and unfinished projects, a restless impulse drove him to check Danielle's phone. There, laid bare on a messaging app, were exchanges with the same man from that fateful arrest. The messages were playful at first, but gradually grew more suggestive, hinting at a connection that went far beyond a one-time professional encounter. The shock of reading those messages sent Alex's heart into a spiral. Every word felt like a betrayal, a confirmation of what his gut had been warning him about for weeks. The realization that his once devoted wife now seemed entangled in something secret and dangerous left him reeling. His mind raced with questions. How had they arrived at this point? Where had the love and trust gone? And most piercing of all, why had Danielle hidden this truth from him? Confrontation and the search for answers. Unable to endure the growing chasm of lies, Alex decided that he could no longer remain silent. One evening, after a day filled with inner torment and sleepless reflection, he sat across from Danielle at their kitchen table. The room, dimly lit by the soft glow of a single lamp, was filled with the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the steady ticking of the wall clock, a stark contrast to the turbulent storm raging within him. "Danielle," Alex began, his voice wavering between anger and sorrow, "I need to understand what's happening between us. I saw the messages. I saw the way you interacted that day with him. What is going on?" Danielle's eyes, once warm and inviting, now filled with a mixture of guilt and resignation. For a long moment, silence prevailed. Finally, she exhaled slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never meant for you to find out like this," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I felt something that I couldn't ignore. It started with a few words, and then I found myself lost." The conversation that followed was raw and wrenching. Danielle admitted that the encounter during her arrest had ignited something inside her, a craving for validation, excitement, and a connection that she felt was missing from their routine life. The thrill of that dangerous liaison, the secrecy of stolen moments, had drawn her in deeper with each passing day. She explained that the man, whose attention had seemed so harmless at first, had become an anchor for her unmet desires and unspoken needs. Alex listened, his heart breaking with every confession. He questioned how love, the foundation of their shared history, could be so easily eroded by fleeting moments of excitement. His mind reeled with memories of better times, the passionate letters they had exchanged early in their relationship, the promises made under starlit skies, and the trust that had once been unshakable. Danielle's remorse was palpable as she continued. I know I've hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I never wanted to betray what we had, but I lost myself. I didn't know how to tell you, and I thought maybe this could fill a void I didn't even realize was there. Reflections in the aftermath. In the days and weeks that followed the confrontation, Alex found himself confronting a maelstrom of emotions. The revelation of Danielle's betrayal forced him to re-examine their entire life together, from the early days of infatuation to the present moment of heartbreak. Was their love truly a mutual journey, or had he been living in a carefully constructed illusion? Alex sought solace in quiet walks along the river near their home, meditating on what had transpired. He began to question whether the foundation of their marriage was irreparably shattered, or whether the shared history and moments of tenderness could serve as a bridge back to understanding. Meanwhile, Danielle vowed to seek therapy and to confront the underlying issues that had driven her to this dangerous liaison. Their story, once defined by comfort and routine, had now taken on a new shape, one characterized by uncertainty, grief, and a desperate search for redemption. Alex grappled with the pain of betrayal, yet he also found in himself a growing resolve to understand not just what had happened, but why. He questioned his own complacency, wondering if he had taken for granted the subtle shifts in Danielle's demeanor that had signaled a deepening disconnect. The crossroads of forgiveness. Months later, the wounds of betrayal had not yet healed, but a tentative dialogue had begun. Alex and Danielle attended counseling sessions together, where they both committed to unearthing the deeper layers of their relationship. They explored how the excitement of danger and the allure of something forbidden had, in a misguided moment, clouded Danielle's judgment and led her to seek validation outside their marriage. In one particularly painful session, Alex asked, "How did we let this happen? How did our safe home become a place where you felt the need to search for something else?" His voice trembled with both anguish and an earnest desire for clarity. Danielle's response was laden with regret. "I think it started with feeling unseen," she said softly. "I felt that my identity as an officer, as a woman of strength, wasn't enough to make me feel whole. And one moment when I was out there doing my duty, that other man made me feel desired in a way I had forgotten existed." That revelation, delivered with heartfelt sorrow, only deepened Alex's pain. Yet it also opened a space for empathy, a difficult yet necessary step on the path toward healing. Epilogue. A new chapter or the end? The question that lingered in the quiet after every difficult conversation was whether their love could survive such a profound betrayal. In the months that followed, both Alex and Danielle embarked on individual journeys of self-discovery. Alex, though shattered, began to rebuild his own sense of self-worth. He learned that forgiveness was not about forgetting the hurt, but about reclaiming his own identity and setting boundaries for what he could accept. Danielle, for her part, committed to a process of deep introspection and change, determined to understand the cracks that had allowed this betrayal to seep into their lives. Their marriage, once a fortress of unwavering trust, now resembled a fragile glass sculpture, beautiful in its imperfections and in desperate need of careful repair. In time, they reached a crossroads, one where they could either choose to rebuild together with a renewed commitment to honesty and open communication, or part ways and heal separately. Though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear. Their journey through betrayal and healing had irrevocably altered the course of their lives. The lessons learned, painful as they were, served as a stark reminder that even the strongest bonds require constant nurturing, and that trust, once broken, demands time, effort, and a deep willingness to change. Alex often thought back to that fateful day, the day he saw Danielle arrest the man who would, unknowingly, become the catalyst for their unraveling. It was a moment frozen in time, marking the beginning of a collision between duty and desire, truth and deception, love and betrayal. And as he moved forward, whether together or apart, the memory of that day remained a poignant reminder of how fragile the fabric of trust can be. Chris and Catherine had always prided themselves on the comfortable familiarity of their shared life, a blend of routines built on love, laughter, and a deep connection forged over years together. One balmy summer evening, they decided to break away from the norm and attend a comedy show downtown. The atmosphere was vibrant, the air thick with anticipation as the lights dimmed and the stage came alive with a comedian named Tyler. A night of laughter and allure, Tyler, a charismatic black comic with a sharp wit and an infectious stage presence, immediately captured the audience's attention. His style was raw and unfiltered, blending humor with a playfully edgy commentary. As he took the microphone, his eyes occasionally flicked toward the couple seated near the front. Catherine, in her stylish yet effortlessly cool ensemble, couldn't help but be drawn into the magnetic energy of Tyler's performance. Throughout the show, Tyler unleashed a series of jokes that broke the ice between onstage humor and cheeky banter offstage. Among his quips was one that humorously contrasted his own style with that of a snow bunny, a term he tossed into the mix with a mischievous grin aimed in Catherine's direction. To the delight of the audience, and perhaps more to his own amusement, Tyler's playful remark sparked an unexpected burst of laughter from Catherine. Her laugh, bright and genuine, resonated like music throughout the venue, catching Tyler's attention in a way that went far beyond the scripted humor. A connection beyond the stage. After the show, as the crowd began to disperse into the warm night, Tyler casually approached Catherine. His confidence was disarming, and he struck up a conversation that quickly turned into a private performance of his own, one filled with impromptu quips and earnest compliments. Catherine found herself drawn to his vibrant personality and the effortless way he made her laugh. They talked about everything from the nuances of his comedy routines to the little details of life that were often left unspoken. In that moment, the two shared an undeniable spark, a connection fueled by humor, charisma, and an unexpected layer of attraction. Chris, who had been immersed in quiet pride as he watched Catherine's laughter fill the space, felt an inexplicable mix of admiration and a slight knot of unease in the pit of his stomach. He chalked it up to the magic of the night and the undeniable pull of live entertainment, never suspecting that the spark that had ignited between Catherine and Tyler would grow into something he couldn't ignore. The days that followed. In the weeks that followed, subtle changes began to ripple through Catherine's behavior. While the love and respect for Chris remained evident in her eyes, there were moments when her attention seemed to drift, to a phone buzzing with texts, to an absent-minded smile when she recalled a particularly witty comment from Tyler, or to the way her thoughts seemed to wander during their quiet dinners at home. Unbeknownst to Chris, Catherine found herself increasingly entangled in a web of flirtation and emotional intimacy with Tyler. His texts, laced with playful humor and suggestive undertones, became frequent. Their conversations, once lighthearted exchanges about the comedy circuit, deepened into discussions that felt dangerously personal. Catherine tried to suppress the growing guilt, assuring herself that nothing physical had happened yet, that the allure was only in the laughter, the thrill of connection, and the escape from the monotony that sometimes settles even in the most loving relationships. The shattering confession. One cool evening, as Chris prepared dinner in their modest kitchen, Catherine's eyes glistened with a turmoil that she could no longer mask. The sound of the simmering pot on the stove seemed to underscore the heavy silence that had settled between them. Sitting down together at the table, Catherine reached for Chris's hand, her voice trembling as she spoke. "Chris," she began softly, "I need to tell you something. I cheated. I couldn't help it. There was something about it, about him. The sex, the laughter, the thrill. It felt too good to resist." Chris felt as if the floor had shifted beneath him. In that moment, every shared memory, every promise they had made, came crashing down in a tidal wave of disbelief and heartache. The revelation was not merely about the betrayal of trust, but the collision of two worlds. An impulsive, electrifying encounter that had awakened desires Catherine hadn't known existed, and that she now could no longer hide. The collision of worlds. In the aftermath of the confession, the very fabric of their marriage was tested. Chris grappled with a whirlwind of emotions: betrayal, confusion, and an aching sorrow for the life they once shared. Questions poured through him. How had their love, anchored in years of mutual understanding, cracked open under the weight of temptation? What had Catherine seen in that moment with Tyler that she couldn't find in the familiarity of home? Catherine, her eyes pleading for understanding, explained that the allure wasn't planned or premeditated. It was a moment of vulnerability, a collision between her need for exhilaration and the safe confines of what she had known. She told Chris about the way Tyler made her laugh, about the intoxicating rush of novelty and physical chemistry that she found impossible to resist. The sex, as she described it, was raw and liberating, a departure from the predictability that over time had dulled her senses. Seeking redemption or a new beginning. In the days that followed the confession, the couple faced the hard work of reconciling a shattered trust. Chris found himself at a crossroads, torn between the deep wounds of betrayal and the memories of a love that had once felt unbreakable. He sought solace in long, solitary walks and quiet moments of reflection, trying to piece together the fragments of his once confident self. Catherine, filled with remorse and haunted by the realization of what her actions had cost her, reached out for both professional help and for a renewed commitment to the vows they'd taken so long ago. The path toward healing was steep, each day a new challenge in rebuilding bridges scorched by desire and deception. Together, they contemplated counseling sessions, honest dialogue, and the possibility of crafting a new narrative from the ruins of the old one. A fragile new chapter. Months passed in a slow, painful rhythm. There were days when laughter returned to their home, small, tentative laughter that echoed like a ghost of what had once been. There were times when they both understood that while the memories of that fateful comedy show and the forbidden flirtations would never fully fade, they could learn to live alongside the scars. Chris, ever the introspective soul, began to understand that love, no matter how deeply rooted, is sometimes tested by moments of weakness. And Catherine, too, realized that the thrill of a new connection was no substitute for the deep, enduring commitment that had brought them together in the first place. In the end, their story didn't resolve into a neat fairy tale conclusion. It remained an ongoing journey, a collision of passion and duty, of regret and redemption. And while the pages of their shared history would forever bear the mark of that night of laughter and betrayal, they both clung to a fragile hope that within the chasms of hurt might one day bloom the seeds of forgiveness, resilience, and a love remade in the honest light of truth.